الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with Akhsar Al-Mokhtasarat. And last time we talked about As-Sulh. The last thing we talked about was As-Sulh. And As-Sulh, the reconciliation with matters that are financial and the different types of it and some of the rulings that are related to it. And the next fasl, it's going to be about the rights of the neighbors, but from a fiqh perspective, from a legal perspective. And hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, everything before is clear. And it's just a reminder that the notes that we take, since we're making sure that every word we read in Arabic, and then of course we get to translate it, but we need to do the best we can to remember the Arabic words, because that's going to be taking us to the next level, inshallah ta'ala, but also taking notes. And taking notes, it's something maybe that we can also, one time we can talk about it, because even the ulama, they mentioned this. And I think we briefly talked about it in the adab, one of the etiquettes of seeking knowledge, because you need to have these notes in such a way that anytime you refer back to it, even after years and years, you would remember what was said and what you wrote so that you understand it. And things, is built on, based on what a person has, in especially the original notes of things. So it's very important with regards to writing notes and to memorize. As we know that ilm, without hifz, without memorization, it's deficient. So memorization has to be there. Understanding is another pillar of seeking knowledge and acting upon what we learn. And these are the three that always they talk about. These are the foundations of ilm: the memorization, the understanding, and to act upon it. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us comprehend and understand what we learn. So he says here, we stopped at fasl. He says, وَإِذَا حَصَلَ في أرضه أو جداره أو هوائه غصن شجرة غيره أو غرفته لزم. Then he continues, which means وإذا حصل في أرضه. حصل is basically something happened. So if حصل something. So when you say, for example, if someone attacked his land, or someone, as we're going to see here, this is about the neighbors. So someone has a land adjacent to another land. So something from one land went to the other land. Building, trees, things like this. So وَإِذَا حَصَلَ فِي أَرْضِ. So if something happened in his land, إِذَا حَصَلَ فِي أَرْضِهِ, in his land, أو جداره, or his wall. Al-Jidar is the wall, as it's mentioned in Surah Al-Kahf. وَأَمَّا الْجِدَارُ فَكَانَ لِغُلَامَيْنِ. And as for the wall, it was for the two orphans. So أو جداره, and as we see here, the language of Al-Fiqh, it doesn't give from the beginning the complete sentence, meaning it should be obviously understood. It doesn't mention an introduction, two people living next to each other, then the first, and no. It's وَإِذَا حَصَلَ فِي أَرْضِهِ أَرْضُهُ. If something happened in his land. The land of who? The land of one versus the other. So وَإِذَا حَصَلَ في أرضه أو جداره, or his wall, أو هوائه. Al-hawa is the air. So his air, meaning, as we know that, which is a condition, or a principle, a foundation, a rule in matters of fiqh, that al-hawa له نفس حكم الأرض. When a person purchases a land, the earth or the land is his, and the air above it is his. The air above it, or the space above the land, is his. Right? It belongs to him. So as we see what's the importance of that. So he says, وَإِذَا حَصَلَ فِي أَرْضِهِ أَوْ جِدَارِهِ أَوْ هَوَائِهِ, meaning the space on top of the earth, which is here refers to the Sometimes it refers to the atmosphere, to the basically the air, the space on top of the land. غصن شجرة غيري. غصن شجرة. الشجرة is the tree. غصن is the branch. So a tree branch غيره of other than him. So that means we understand from the sentence that we have someone has a land and the neighbor, the one that his land is attached to it. If a tree, a branch of a tree goes into the neighbor's land. That's basically what this مسألة is saying here. وإذا حصل في أرضه أو جداره أو هوائه غصن شجرة غيره. غصن, الغصن is the branch. شجرة غيره, the tree of someone else, of other than him. أو غرفته, or his غرفة. his غرفة. غرفته. غرفته. And الغرفات, as it's mentioned in the Quran, those who are in the highest level of Jannah, الغرفة is a room, but not any room. People nowadays, they use the word غرفة for any room. Any room is called غرفة, a room by itself. But the غرفة here refers to a غرفة specifically being on a higher level. On a higher level, second floor, third floor, something like this. Otherwise, what's the importance of mentioning a غرفة here? It's already mentioned al-ard, the land, al-jidar, the wall, the atmosphere on top of the land. So if a غصن شجرة, if a branch of a tree of someone else, his neighbor, أو غرفته, or his room, أو هوائي، وإذا حصل في أرضي أو جداري أو هوائي غصن شجرة غيري أو غرفته. The غرفة of who? The غرفة of the neighbor. Right? So the room of the neighbor, a higher room, gets into the air or the land of his neighbor. Right? So someone builds something and then, gets into the land. Of course, it's obvious if he builds something that would be getting into his neighbor's land. This is, of course, something that is very obviously aggression or, wrong. But also the غرفة, because the hawa has the same rule as the earth. So if he built the pillars in his land, but then the extension of it gets into his neighbor's land. So all of that is the tasawwur, or how to perceive the mas'ala here. This is what's then the ruling in this case. Clear? Lazima, he says lazima. Lazima, that means becomes binding, becomes upon, something that has to be done. Lazima izalatuhu. It has to be removed. Al-izala is to remove it. Lazima izalatuhu. Izalat what? All of what's mentioned. The branch of the tree, the ghurfa, this has to be removed. Why? Because he got into his neighbor's land or his neighbor's air or whatever. So lazima izalatuhu, that's number one. وضمن ما تلف به بعد طلب. وضمن, and he would guarantee ما تلف به, what the branch or what the building destroyed in the land of his neighbor. بعد طلب, after the neighbor would ask for the compensation. So if the tree broke something in his neighbor's land, if he built something and as a result of that it broke something, or while he was removing it, it broke something in his neighbor's land or neighbor's building or whatever, then who is to fix that? The neighbor that had the tree or had the room. وضمن ما تلف. التلف is when something is ruined, is broken. بعد طلب, after asking. After asking, that means if he doesn't ask, how would he know? Of course. So this is, to make sure that the matter he has the right for such a thing. And of course, the harm is to be removed under any condition. So this is something that needs to be well taken care of. فإن أبى, so he says here, فإن أبى, if he refuses to remove the branch of the tree, لم يجبر في الغصن ولا. If the neighbor refuses to do anything about the tree, says this is the trees now, I have nothing to do with it. Just this is what happened. The branch get into your land. So he refused to do anything. لم يجبر في الغصن. He is not to be يجبر, that means from al-jabr, he's not to be forced to cut it when it comes to the branch. ولواه. اللي is to bend something. اللي ولواه, that means the one that the branch of the tree is in his land, he has the right to bend it. So it's bothering him because he might benefit from it. He gets some shade or something, he likes it, there's no problem. But if he wants to remove it, he has the right to take the branch and to remove it from his land. He has the right because this is harming him, this is in his land. He doesn't have to go to the authority unless the authority, they would say that you cannot do that unless you go to us first. But here, according to the Shara here, he can bend it. So walawahu here refers to the one that in his land the branch is crossing to his land. فإن أبى لم يجبر في الغصن. So he's not forced in the branch walawahu. But lawahu here refers to the one that the tree is entering in his land. Is it clear? فإن أبى لم يجبر في الغصن. This is about the غصن. But that means if he refuses when it comes to a building like the room, he does not have a choice. He cannot refuse because that's different. He built it. So the tree is special. So the tree here, because it's the person might benefit from it or might not benefit from it, but he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to remove the branch, but the one that is harmed by it, he can bend it. He has the right to do so. And of course, anything that cause harm, then it goes to the owner of the tree. So فإن أبى لم يجبر في الغصن ولواه, and he would bend it. فإن لم يمكن, if he's not able to bend the branch of the tree, it's tough, or there's no way that he can do this. فله قطعه بلا حكم. He has the right to cut it بلا حكم, without a ruling, without the authorities have to intervene. So he doesn't have to wait for the authorities because this is harm is happening to him. He can cut it and he has the right to do so. And of course, this is bila hukm, this is what is meant here. But if in a place or a land or whatever, the law is that you cannot even do that unless you go to the authority first. And then he has to follow that so that he does not harm himself. But this is the original ruling of it. فإن لم يمكن فله قطعه بلا حكم. If he's not able to bend it, then he can cut it. بلا حكم. This is the meaning of حكم, without a ruling from the judge. He doesn't have to go to the judge to seek that. Clear? And he says ويجوز, so this is clear when it comes to إذا حصل في أرضه, if something that happens in his land or his جدار, his wall, or the atmosphere of his land, غصن شجرة غير أو غرفته, tree or a land or a building or a structure, لزم إزالته, has to be removed, وضمن ما تلف به بعد طلب, and he guarantees what happened, any thing that is ruined. And if he refuses, if only in the tree, he's not forced, but the person that is receiving the harm, he can bend it. If he's not able to bend it, then he has the right to cut it without a hukm, without having to go to the authorities. Who? He cannot refuse to pay for the damages, yes. If damages happens, he has to pay for the damage. No. And even if the tree, the roots of it gets into the neighbor, that also has to be assessed. If it's harmful to the neighbor, then it has to be removed, even if it will cause for the tree to be removed. Sometimes it goes into the foundation of the building or something like this. So the rule that applies this, لا ضرر ولا ضرر, no harm, and no one is to harm anyone. No one is to harm anyone. No one is to harm himself or harm others. So the harm has to be removed, and that's why it's different from different environments and different ways and things like this. So and then he says ويجوز فتح باب للاستطراق أو لاستطراق في ضرب نافذ. ويجوز فتح باب لاستطراق. يجوز meaning it's permissible. فتح باب, to open a door. لاستطراق, الاستطراق from الطريق, to seek the طريق, to seek the path, to seek the road. So someone that needs to open a door to get to the road or to the path or something like this. في ضرب, الضرب is basically the road or the street. نافذ, that means it penetrates. But here نافذ means that it's a road that is for the public, that goes into the open. It's not a dead end street, basically. طريق نافذ, that means it's not a dead end. It goes to other roads and to other places. It's not specific to only few people that are living in it. Because there are rulings when it comes to a street that is a dead end versus a street that is nafid, right? As he will mention the other type of streets. So ويجوز فتح باب لاستطراق في ضرب نافذ. So a person can open a door that would get him to go to the road. Because the tariq, if it's not nafid, people are, few homes right next to each other or in front of each other, and the road is only for them, right? And it does not go anywhere else. So then no one can open a door except the door that is the obvious door of the house, for example. He cannot open a door to get that path to go outside or otherwise, unless he take permission from everyone there. If it's a tariq nafid, if they're living on the streets, then it's okay. Takes them out of the street, then it's okay. ويجوز فتح باب لاستطراق في ضرب نافذ. So this is if the tariq, to open a door to the road. Either the road is nafid or غير نافذ. النفوذ فانفذوا يا معشر الجن والإنس إن استطعتم، سورة الرحمن، إن استطعتم أن تنفذوا من أقطار السماوات والأرض فانفذوا لا تنفذون إلا بسلطان. O jinn and mankind, if you're able to go away from the earth and the skies, تنفذوا, that you penetrate away, you go away from the earth and the skies, do so. You won't be able to do that except by the permission of Allah. So this is darb al-nafid, and darb again is the road. So if it's not nafid, then it's not permissible unless he takes permission from those who they share that tariq or a darb that is غير نافذ. Please? So the darb or a tariq either is nafid or غير نافذ. If it's nafid, goes out, it's not dead end, then he can open the door. If it's غير نافذ, only specific to specific people, then it's not permissible till he take permission from them. And of course, all of that with the condition there is no harm. And these types of things, the government, the district, whatever there is, they govern these types of things, and that of course has to be followed. He says, لا إخراج جناح وساباط وميزاب إلا بإذن إمام مع أمن الضرر. But what's not permissible, لا إخراج. That means it is not permissible to bring out جناح. جناح is a wing, right, of a bird. But al-janah here is when you have something as an extension, like the balcony. When you have a balcony that extends to the street, so the building is like this and then the balcony goes like that. So this is janah. Then of course these things has rules, that is, and you have to have a specific measurements for it. You cannot take it all the way to the middle of the street, for example. So the city or whatever, they have laws that governs this. So this is what is meant here. So no one is to extend from his building in a higher floor or something like this, janah, something that would be extended of the building, unless it's with a condition. So لا إخراج جناح. وسابات, السابات is when you connect two buildings together, or when you make a place or a shady place. So it's also an extension to the building, right? So sometimes people, for example, they would have it attached to their walls, and then it's just a shade, to park his car under the shade, for example, and it extends away from the building, or connecting two buildings together, like a bridge or something like this. So it's all about things that are extended from one's building, that it goes beyond the building. وميزاب, al-mizab is the pipe that pushes the water out. Do they have a name for it? Like, the Kaaba has a mizab on top. You know, on the Kaaba there's a mizab that the water falls from it. Water spout. But they call it mizabul Kaaba because it just gets the water on top of the Kaaba to fall down. So the same thing with the mizab. The mizab, it will bring the water down. Does it bring it down on people that would harm them? How long or how short? You know, things like this has to, what place? You know, yes, a person, if he has a roof and it rains, he needs to get this water out. But how to get it out without harming anyone? That's why the word al-mizab is mentioned. لا إخراج جناح وساباط وميزاب إلا, except. So these things, a person is not left to do it the way that he likes. This is all, he should not do it except unless إلا بإذن إمام, with the permission of the Imam. The Imam here is who? Not the Imam of the Masjid. The Imam meaning the ruler, the leader. Or whoever, when the word Imam is mentioned, it doesn't have to be that the president or the king. That refers to anyone that either the highest authority or those who act on his behalf. So anything in the form of a government, they're acting on behalf of the higher authority. So the local authorities, things like this. So إلا بإذن imam, unless they permit for that, they would give him the permit to do so. And the second condition, مع أمن الضرر, with being safe from any harm. Because the rule again, لا ضرر ولا ضرر. It's not permissible for anyone to do any harm. And usually, for the most part, that the imam or the rulers or the people of authority, they would take care of this matter. So that's why there are rules, so that it prevents the harm to oneself or to one's neighbors and things like this. إلا بإذن إمام مع أمن الضرر, with al-amn is the security and al-darar is the harm. So this is with regards to opening a door to the outside, and the same thing with extensions of building, because it all affects the neighbors. He says وفعل ذلك في ملك جار وضرب مشترك حرام بلا إذن مستحق. And to do such a thing, وفعل ذلك, to do any of what's mentioned, to build in one's وفعل ذلك في ملك جار, in the ownership of a neighbor, to build something, of course, in one's in a neighbor's land, or to extend your balcony to be right on your neighbor's land. Even so, it's not just from the bottom of the land, but it's also in higher levels. To you find yourself when you're standing outside of your balcony or so, you're right by the neighbor's land. So all of these things, وفعل ذلك في ملك جار وضرب مشترك. ضرب مشترك. ضرب is what? Road or street. مشترك. مشترك means shared. So it's different than a nafid. A nafid is the one that is for everybody, and it takes the road everywhere. But ضرب مشترك, that means this is a road that is shared only by counted people, like a dead-end street or a very specific thing. So for someone to build a balcony or something extended as what's mentioned before, all of these things, حرام بلا إذن مستحق. It's haram without the permission of the mustahiq, or those who they deserve, meaning those who share the same road, that is mushtarak. Clear? So what's mentioned before, as far as the extension of the buildings, it's permissible to tariq nafid, to the street, to the road of the people, the major streets or streets that have, it goes everywhere, but with the permission of the imam, and there's no harm. But if it's a darbul mushtarak, if it's only for specific people and it's a dead end and it's only for specific people, then it's haram to do that without the permission of those who are in there, those who share the same small road together, because this can harm any of them. وفعل ذلك في ملك جار وضرب مشترك. So the rule here مشترك, whether it's in the owner, whether it's in the neighbor's land, or ضرب مشترك. Both of them, to do any of what's mentioned before, حرام بلا إذن مستحق, without the permission of مستحق. مستحق الاستحقاق is when a person deserves something. Clear? He says وكذا, and also the same ruling. وكذا means that the same applies. وكذا وضع خشب, the same thing with putting khashab. Khashab is wood. Putting wood on the neighbors, and this will be detailed, and there's a specific hadith about this, to put wood on the neighbor's building. Like you need to put wood on your land, and for it to stand, it has to be attached to the neighbor's land or the neighbor's ceiling as it will come. وكذا وضع خشب. So the khashab here, the wood, will be extended and it will touch or go beyond one's land to the neighbor's land. This is not permissible. إلا, except. ألا يمكن تسقيف إلا به. ألا يمكن, there is no way. تسقيف from السقف. السقف is the ceiling. And the تسقيف is على وزن تفعيل, that means the act of making a ceiling. So unless there is no way for a person to make a ceiling for his own house, except that he has to put the wood on his neighbor's ceiling. So you have, first floor, and for him to make a ceiling, if it's the only way they do it with wood, for example, so the wood has to lean on his neighbor's ceiling in a way that it doesn't harm it, then it is permissible. And because the Prophet ﷺ, he clearly stated that. And he says, لا يمنع جار جاره أن يغرز خشبة في جداره. That means a jar should not prevent his jar. لا يمنع جار جاره. No neighbor should prevent his neighbor from أن يغرز. الغرز is when you stick something in a way that it doesn't get removed. That he يغرز خشبه, that he would put his wood in the wall of his neighbor. You should not prevent your neighbor, because otherwise how he's going to make a ceiling? Of course, if it doesn't require wood and things like this, then it's easy. The matter is over. But if that's the only way, then he cannot prevent him. And even when Abu Hurairah, he said this hadith and people looked at him, he says, why are you looking at me? You want me to throw it between your shoulders? That means, yes, you don't have a choice in this. You don't say that's my wall. You don't touch my wall. Because why you want to harm your brother? This is his only way. If this is the only way to make a ceiling, then why you want him to be without a ceiling? Clear? So ألا يمكن تسقيف إلا به. And the same ruling can apply in modern ways of building also. If people share the same wall. So you have an apartment or a townhouse, and there's a wall that is shared between both. And that also is going to have some rulings with it also. So, if you own this and he owns that, and then you have, their bricks has to be in such a way, very silly things. People can say, well, this is my place. You do not add anything to it. Well, you share the same wall. So you have to then recognize that he has to have a ceiling and you have to have a ceiling. ألا يمكن تسقيف إلا به. There's no way that he make tasqif or build a ceiling except by putting his khashab or his wood on top of the ceiling of his neighbor. And another condition, ولا ضرر, and no harm. Because if it harms, then of course the harm is to be removed. No one would ever say, let his neighbor harmed as a result of this. ولا ضرر. So if these two conditions are there, فيجبر, then the neighbor is going to be forced to accept the wood of his neighbor to be on top of his ceiling. فيجبر. If there's no way for the neighbor to build his ceiling except that way, and there's no harm. So if there's another way, then he has the right. If there's harm, then he has the right. Otherwise, فيجبر. ومسجد كدار. Masjid is the same as a house. The same ruling applies. So can a person put his khashab or his wood on top of the masjid because he's adjacent to the masjid? The same ruling applies. Not to say, well, that's the house of Allah. Nobody is to touch it as if he's benefiting from it. If he's not able to build the ceiling except that way and there's no harm to the masjid, then he should. وَمَسْجِدٌ كَدَارٍ. The masjid has the same ruling as the jar, the dar. Now, since this is mentioned, so that means they're attached to one another, then something that leads to the next mas'ala. وَإِن طَلَبَ شَرِيكٌ في حائط أو سقف انهدم شريكه للبناء معه. This is the mas'ala. What's the ruling of it comes afterwards. وَإِن, this is an if statement. And follow it, inshallah. وَإِن طَلَبَ شَرِيكٌ. If a sharik, partner, طلب, he asked, في حائط, in a wall, أو سقف, or a ceiling. انهدم, get broken. انهدم, that means get demolished or fell. If he asked شريكه, if he asked his partner, the one that is living right attached next to him, if he asked him للبناء معه, that he would build with him. So this is the ruling. People that have the same wall between them, like two apartments or two lands with a fence, one fence. So the fence get destroyed. Then who's going to build it? Which neighbor should build it? But the mas'ala here is if one, and that's the meaning of sharik. Sharik fi ha'it. He's a partner in the wall. This wall belongs to both of them. Right? So the ha'it or the ceiling, there are partners in the ceiling, so it fell, get destroyed. So if one asks the other to build, to share with him building it, right? This is what the mas'ala is. What should the other then? Should he say no? Can he refuse? He says ujbira. Then he's forced. Of course, the rule is that something like that falls, they both share building it. But why they mention it like this? Because a person opening the ways for people to be generous. A wall fell. One of them can build it without asking from his neighbor anything. MashaAllah, good. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him. Right? So he's not going to be forced. No, you cannot do that. He has to pay with you. If he wants to do it, sure, no problem. But that's why if he asks, then the other side has to be, he's forced to pay. وإن طلب شريك في حائط أو سقف انهدم شريكه للبناء. So as you see here, وإن طلب شريك, if you remove if you look at the sentence, if you remove the word في حائط أو سقف انهدم, then the sentence will be what? وإن طلب شريك شريكه. Right? Which means if a partner asked from his other partner. So what's in between is that he asked in a wall or a ceiling destroyed. And there are partners in it. شريكه للبناء معه. He asked him to build with him. أجبر. He is to be forced. The rule is he has to. He has no choice. And then he says كنقد خوف سقوط. كنقد خوف سقوط. النقد is like الهدم. النقد is when you break something down. So also the like of كنقد, as someone would destroy or demolish a wall or a ceiling, خوف سقوط, out of the fear that it would fall. So it showed that it's about to fall, so they don't want to wait till it falls and it causes harm. So it has to be removed. So the same rulings, of course, applies. So if one refuses to help or to share the building of it, he says, well, it's still intact. It's still the wall is there. I'm not going, if you break it, I'm not gonna share building it. No, he has to be forced. Why? Because it's about to fall. This is what is meant. كنقد خوف سقوط. So it doesn't have to be already fell. It can be old and it's about to fall. Then the same ruling applies. And he says, وَإِن بَنَاهُ بِنِيَّةِ الرُّجُوعِ رَجَعَ. وَإِن بَنَاهُ بِنِيَّةِ الرُّجُوعِ. The mas'ala here, if he built it with the intention to الرجوع. We talked about الرجوع before. What is the meaning of الرجوع? To go back to the first one, asking him. So we have, okay, the wall got destroyed. Either he built it without asking or he asked first. Right? So if he asks first, this is obvious. He would go to his neighbor, the wall is broke, we need to build it, and they both share and they build it. If he doesn't ask, his neighbor is traveling, he's not present, so he built it. One of the neighbors built it. بنية الرجوع. And while he was building it, his intention is that he will go to his neighbor and take money from him. This is الرجوع. الرجوع إلى الجار. الرجوع إلى الجار, not physically to return to him, but الرجوع باعتبار المال, that you're going to get some money from him. رجع, that means the neighbor has to give him whatever the share is. So the mafhum, the understanding of this is, if he did not have the niyyah of الرجوع, his neighbor is not there, and the guy, he wants to be nice. So he built it with the intention that he's doing that as an act of goodness from him. This is his intention. And Allah knows what's in his intentions. So if his intention is like this, that he's doing it out of his goodness, then he should not go later and ask the neighbor for money. But if he lies, or this is not his intentions, and he built it without the permission of his neighbor, unlike the previous ones when we talked about the sulh. Now here, the neighbor refuses. The neighbor doesn't want to build the wall. The neighbor doesn't know anything about it. If the other neighbor built it, the other neighbor has to pay because it's a common thing between them. They share it. So the same thing when people live together in buildings, apartments or whatever is a together type of a thing, then no one has a choice. So and if someone refuses, then he is to be forced by the authority to pay his share. So anything like the main door to the building, got broken. Do they have to knock on everyone's door? Please, we're going to do this. And if someone refuses, okay, then we cannot do it because everybody has to agree. There's no such a thing. Of course, they would agree to this in the very beginning when they build the building. But what if they don't? The ruling, if it goes to the judge, of course, it's to be fixed without permission of nobody. And whoever pays for it, right? If only one person pays, he can go after each and every one of them, and they pay their share to fix what is common. They all benefit from it, or harm would afflict all of them as a result of that. So it doesn't have to be that they accept, because they share, they are partners in it. So many things can apply here. The main water pipe, the water source, electricity, the main thing, all of these types of things. وإن بناه بنية الرجوع رجع. And sometimes when people have private buildings and they don't have a clear contract of how they deal with things, all kinds of problems comes as a result of this. The elevator is broke, or maintenance of the building, or whatever there is. Some people, they refuse to pay, and then there's no authority would come and judge between them. So it becomes haram on them to refuse. And that's why people might have to take care of these matters so that they don't fall into these issues. In the last mas'ala here, وَكَذَا نَهْرٌ وَنَحْوُهُ. And the same ruling applies for a nahr. Nahr is a river. وَنَحْوُهُ, and the like of that. What is the nahr? A river that many people, they benefit from it with irrigation and things like this. So something needs to be fixed for the nahr, for the river, to put some walls in the bottom or bricks or whatever they need to make sure that something broke in the river, they need to fix it. Then they don't have to go to each and every one that benefits from it. They can fix it, and they go back after each and every one, and they take the money, distribute the money among all of them. So وَكَذَا نَهْرٌ وَنَحْوُهُ, and the like of it, where people would share the benefit with one another. That means they have to all share also the expenses and the maintenance of it. Is it clear? So let's read it to make sure that it's clear. Let's read it together, inshallah. وَإِذَا حَصَلَ. Say وَإِذَا حَصَلَ, and make sure that you also make sure that you read it correctly. We'll have maybe reading only, testing some of the reading later, inshallah. So make sure that you read it correctly with the tashkil. وَإِذَا حَصَلَ. And if any word that is not clear, ask me after we finish reading it, inshallah. وَإِذَا حَصَلَ في أرضه أو جداره أو هوائه غصن شجرة غيره. غصن شجرة غيره. As we see, sometimes we make tanween, sometimes we don't make tanween, because it depends on what's being said. So if you say غصن, and then you realize, oh, shajara, you cannot say غصن شجرة غيره. It has to be without a tanween. غصن شجرة, because مضاف and مضاف إليه. Right? غصن, it's the branch of a tree. غصن, that means it's a standalone thing. But غصن شجرة, so it's a branch of a tree. And then غصن شجرة, if it stops here, but it doesn't stop there. There's غيره, someone else. So that's why it has to be غصن شجرة غيره. right? So غصن شجرة غيره أو غرفته. So غرفته here is معطوف on one. You know معطوف? What's معطوف in English? معطوف after واو. Yeah, after واو. محمد وأحمد. أحمد is joint. Con conjugation, conjunction. Okay, conjunction. But how would you say غرفته conjunction on what? Am I saying that right? Is conjoined to what? غرفته is conjoined to who? To what? Okay. غصن. So غصن شجرة غيري أو غرفته. So the غرفة is conjunct. What? Hmm? غرفته, that means غيره. Right? So, okay, let's see it both ways. So, if a غصن الشجرة, if the branch of the tree goes and the غرفة goes. So it's based on the غرفة, on the غصن الشجرة. Here, غيره, if it's معطوف أو هوائه أو غرفته. So if something in his land or something happened to his wall or something happened to his atmosphere or something happened to his room. You can, yes. If something happened to his room. But if it's غرفته, it's already mentioned in أرضه وجداره وهوائه. Right? So if it either refers to the first neighbor, the one that the branch goes to him, and or it can refer to the one that has the tree. So if it either way, if the harm is happening, the harm has to be removed. Right? So this is والله أعلم أو غرفته. لزم, say لزم إزالته وضمن ما تلف به بعد طلب. فإن أبى لم يجبر في الغصن ولواه. He would bend it. فإن لم يمكن, he's not able to bend it, فله قطعه بلا حكم, without a judgment, without a ruling. ويجوز فتح باب لاستطراق في ضرب نافذ لا إخراج جناح وساباط وميزاب إلا بإذن إمام مع أمن الضرر. وفعل ذلك في ملك جار ودرب مشترك حرام بلا إذن مستحق. بلا إذن مستحق. مستحق. See, here also with the tanween, I don't want to get into deep here, but why we say في ملك جار, not في ملك جار, that's completely different story if you say this. وضرب مشترك, you can't say وضرب مشترك, because if you say وضرب مشترك, مشترك becomes the individual. So it's talking about the darb, it's talking about the street that is مشترك. The street is shared, right? But then حرام بلا إذن مستحق. Like if you say بلا إذن, and then you look مستحق. If you say بلا إذن, then the word after it has to be مستحق. مستحق means it refers to the إذن. That the إذن is مستحق. The إذن is required, is deserved. But it's not talking about the permission is deserved. It talks about بلا إذن مستحق, without the permission of the mustahiq, the permission of the one that deserves to be asked. Right? So that's why without tanween. So anyway, حرام بلا إذن مستحق. وكذا وضع خشب إلا ألا يمكن تسقيف إلا به ولا ضرر فيجبر، ومسجد كدار، وإن طلب شريك في حائط أو سقف انهدم شريكه للبناء معه أجبر. Do you see that sentence? Because if you say وإن طلب شريك, even the way you stop, when you have commas and stuff like that, because otherwise if you don't stop or you stop, you can change the meaning. So وإن طلب شريك في حائط أو سقف انهدم شريكه, that doesn't work that way because he's asking from his sharik. So وإن طلب شريك في حائط أو سقف انهدم شريكه للبناء, he asked his sharik, that's fine. He asked his sharik, his partner, to build with him. أجبر. كنقد, say كنقد خوف سقوط, وإن بناه بنية الرجوع رجع, وكذا نهر ونحوه. Uh, is it clear before we take the hadith? Any word, any mas'ala is not clear? We're not talking about what's happening now or anything, what if, and thing. We're just talking about, are these clear? What is it? كنقد خوف سقوط. Like the same thing applies, the same rulings apply if someone, again, they share a wall. The wall is between both of them. And if the wall destroyed, the ruling is clear. If one built it, the other one has to pay him his share. He does not have a choice. But here, if he fears that it's going to fall, and the engineer, whatever, says, yes, this needs to be demolished because it's going to fall, and if it falls, it can harm someone. So that means they would demolish it. This is the naqd. They would demolish the wall intentionally. Why? Because khawf sukut, out of the fear that it's going to fall. So the same ruling apply. The neighbor, he has no right to say, well, it was there. Why did you break it? You fixed it, you deal with it. No, he has to pay. Because the reason why he destroyed it is because it was about to collapse. What was the long hadith again that we didn't finish? And if you have any questions, please, we'll take the hadith and then if you have any questions, inshallah. Hadith 141, the long hadith that we didn't finish yet. 141. Do you remember where we stopped? على أفجر قلب رجل واحد منكم, we said it. Then, يا عبادي لو أن أولكم قاموا في صعيد واحد, right? Yes, في صعيد واحد. So we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The last word in the fifth line from the bottom. The last word from the fifth line from the bottom. We'll just read that. Hadith 141. Everybody's there? He says, hadith, I'm just reading the part of the hadith. يا عبادي, hadith قدسي. يا عبادي لو أن أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم قاموا في صعيد واحد فسألوني فأعطيت كل إنسان منهم مسألته ما نقص ذلك عندي إلا كما ينقص المخيط إذا دخل البحر. يا عبادي إنما هي أعمالكم أحصيها لكم ثم أوفيكم إياها فمن وجد خيرا فليحمد الله عز وجل ومن وجد غير ذلك فلا يلومن إلا نفسه رواه مسلم. This last part of the hadith is hadith Qudsi, this beautiful hadith. It says, Ya ibadi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ibadi, or my ibad, my slaves, my servants. The same as mentioned before. لو أن أولكم وآخركم. If the first among you and the last among you. وإنسكم وجنكم. And the humans and the jinn, all of them. قاموا في صعيد واحد. They all stood in one صعيد. صعيد is the land, is an open land, is on the earth. And the صعيد is the earth. فتيمموا صعيدا طيبة. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, make tayammum from الصعيد. الصعيد is what's from the earth, the dust from the earth. So they all stood next to each other in one place, in one plain place. فسألوني. They all of them from the time of Adam alayhi salam till the day of judgment, and everyone. And they asked, each one asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala whatever they ask. فأعطيت, and I gave كل إنسان منهم. I gave every insan, every human being among them مسألته, what he asked for, without any limits. And if all they're given, ما نقص ذلك عندي, that would not decrease, diminish anything with me, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the treasures of Allah that He has subhanahu wa ta'ala, that would not decrease anything, إلا كما ينقص المخيط إذا دخل البحر. Except is like when the mikhyat, al-mikhyat is the needle that they use to sew the clothes, where you put the thread in. So if that mikhyat is the needle, if it's put in the ocean, how much does it come out with the ocean on it? Right? Nothing. Not a drop. If people say, well, there is something, so that means the ocean is decreased by that something, the answer is no. The ocean is not decreased even. Why? Because there's more water that comes. So, and this is so insignificant that it doesn't mean that the ocean decreased. So this is the same thing where if everyone asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give everyone what they asked for without limits, that doesn't decrease anything from the treasures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then He says, Ya ibadi, إنما هي أعمالكم. Choose the richness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh my slaves, إنما هي أعمالكم. This is your a'mal. This is your actions. You don't benefit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't cause harm to Allah, as it's mentioned before. No one, if every single human beings on the face of earth, they are the most wicked, as mentioned in the hadith, we read the sentences, and they do the most wicked actions, that doesn't decrease anything from the kingdom and the ownership of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then, therefore, at the end, إنما هي أعمالكم. It is nothing but your a'mal, your actions. أحصيها لكم. That means I count them for you. Every actions, it's not lost. It's all comprehended and it's all recorded. ثم أوفيكم إياها. Then I will give it to you in full. You will see your actions in full, the rewards of it, والعياذ بالله, the sins. So ثم أوفيكم. And الوفاء, when something is completely, perfectly to be returned. فَمَنْ وَجَدَ خَيْرًا. So therefore, whoever finds goodness, meaning in the day of judgment, sees the rewards preserved for him, فَلْيَحْمَدِ اللَّهَ عَزَّ وَجَلَ. Let him be grateful to Allah, because this is all by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَنْ وَجَدَ غَيْرَ ذَلِكَ. And whoever finds other than that, other than what he would be pleased with, meaning sins and evil and things like this, فَلَا يَلُومَنَّ إِلَّا نَفْسَهُ. He should not blame anyone but his own self. And this is how things will be in the day of judgment. And the last of the words of the people after the judgment is established, وَقَالُوا الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي صَدَقَنَا وَعْدَهُ. Everyone will say Alhamdulillah. And for those who would enter the hellfire, they would curse themselves and they would blame themselves, and they would see and taste the evil outcome of their actions. So this is the hadith, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us benefit from it. And maybe we can go through it, the entire hadith, in next time, inshallah. But let's see if there's any questions. So, you have any questions? And وفعل ذلك في ملك جار ودرب مشترك حرام بلا إذن مستحق. Meaning the action of what's mentioned before, having جناح وسابات وميزاب, to extend in one's building in the ownership of his neighbor, or a common road, then this is haram without the permission of those who share it. Because the previous ruling was if it's in an open road, then it's okay. But with the permission of the imam or the authority, and there's no harm. You see the difference between both, right? If it's a common road, then you can have a balcony, you can have something, you can have a shade, but all of that is with the permission of the city. They have to give you permission for this, and there's no harm. But if it's a common road, not common road is for everybody. But if it's a private road, private alley or something, that it's dead end. It does not go from this alley to the outside. It's only limited to few houses or something like this. Then it's haram to extend in one's building unless each and everyone would permit this, because it affects them, because it's not a road that is people can come into it and leave it, and it's only for those who share it. No. The attendance code is uh, darb or darab or road, but it's darb, D-A-R-B, it's okay, or road. So darb or road, all of them, right? Or anyone, okay. Darb, road, tariq, T-A-R-E-E-Q, roadway, nafidh, Nafith, public, or nafidh in Arabic, mushtarak, Mushtarak, private. So all of these words, we took them, mashallah. All of them, one of them, right? Is that right? Any of them, mashallah. Any questions? Everything's clear? The thing is, when these things, if you write your notes, mashallah, but if you don't, then we come next time, or even when we go through the previous chapters, and then we read something, what does that mean? So it's very important that we go through it, inshallah, and we make sure that we remember it, inshallah. Then the next chapter will be Al-Hajr. Al-Hajr is when someone, they take their money away because they cannot pay the loans. What they call it in English. You have to take it up. Not possession. We'll see. The legal term of when someone is not, either he's not responsible for his actions anymore, so someone has to be in possession of their wealth, or someone has so much loans they file bankruptcy or something of that nature, so they have to take over. He cannot spend anything of his money till all of the people, the lenders, have to take their money first. So that's the next subject, inshallah. Oh, there's questions? Can you write? Oh, you've told now about door to be opened. Right. And when we talked about, again, I'll mention it again, for someone's door to open a door to a road from his house. The road, either a public road, then it's okay, it's permissible, with the permission of the imam, which is the permission of the authority, the state or the city or whatever, and there's no harm. It does not cause harm to anyone. But if opening the door will open to a private road or a private alley that is not public, that it doesn't go in and out, people can go in and out from it. It's only for individuals, those who are living there. Then it's haram to open a door, to do anything unless all they would permit and they would agree that this is okay, because this can harm them in their specific or their private road. Second one, regarding the hadith, can you review the old part of the hadith too? Yes, inshallah, we'll do that, inshallah ta'ala, next time because of the time. We'll go through the entire hadith, inshallah. This hadith Qudsi, next time, inshallah ta'ala. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us benefit from what we heard, inshallah. Sallallahu sallam wa baraka Muhammad wa sahbihi wa sallam. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك